Republicans are intellectually and morally dishonest to criticize President Biden when their dear chosen leader, Donald Trump, presents with symptoms which are quite frankly scary.
I just wonder if the gentleman from the other side of the aisle is concerned that the additional aid that was voted on to go to Taiwan would cause that island to tip over in any point in the future.
You know what? I hope that the island of Guam is floating on water and not on diesel fuel.
While the hearing that got a lot of play in the press about Merrick Garland potentially being held in contempt of Congress was the one where Marjorie Taylor Greene made the now famous eyelash comment.
Do you know what we're here for? You know we're here about AG.
I don't think you know what you're here for.
Well, you the one talking about, I guess
I think your fake eyelashes are messing up what you're
ain't
reading.
nothing.
Hold on.
Listen.
That is absolutely unacceptable. How dare you attack
meeting will
the
suspend.
physical
Meeting
appearance
will
of another
suspend.
person?
Are your feelings hurt?
Her words down.
Aw.
Oh, girl, baby girl.
Oh, really? Why don't you debate me?
Mr. Chairman, the
I
minority.
think it's pretty self-evident.
Chair you're not.
Yeah, you're not.
Out of order.
You don't have enough
You're out of order.
intelligence.
Chair recognizes Mr. Perry.
Okay, move to strike the.
There's a lot of over talking, but as far as we can make out, and you can remove your false eyelashes too.
If someone on this committee then starts talking about somebody's bleach blonde, bad built butch body, that would not be engaging in personalities, correct?
A what now?
You just voted to do
Y'all
it.
did it first, so you don't want to talk about
voted to do it.
Order.
Come and talk shit about her, y'all gonna have a problem.
Mr.
They identify as clerks.
Like as clerks.
That what?
You're not respecting their identity?
You will never get an apology out of me.
However, there was another entertaining moment that came out of a different hearing related to the same topic. This was Hank Johnson of Georgia and Thomas Massie of Kentucky going back and forth about the narrative Democrats are now trying to push about Donald Trump, which is apparently giving up on trying to convince the public that Joe Biden is not senile, but instead saying that Donald Trump is also senile and losing his mental faculties. What Massie is trying to do here is point out the irony of it being Hank Johnson who's claiming that Trump's mental capabilities are diminishing. It's ironic because we're talking about Hank Johnson, a congressman who legitimately asked during a hearing whether or not sending more military members to Guam would make the island capsize.
No, this is a island that at its widest level is 12 miles from shore to shore, and at its smallest level or smallest location, it's 7 miles between one shore and the other. Is that correct?
I don't have the exact dimensions, but to your point, sir, I think Guam is a small island.
Very small island, and about 24 miles, if I recall, long. So 24 miles long, about 7 miles wide at the least widest place on the island, and about 12 miles wide on the widest part of the island. And I don't know how many square miles that is. Do you happen to know?
I don't have that figure with me, sir. I can certainly supply it to you if you'd like.
Yeah, my fear is that the whole island will become so overly populated that it will tip over and capsize.
We don't anticipate that. The Guam population, I think, currently about 175,000, and again, with 8,000 Marines and their families, it's an addition of about 25,000 more into the population.
Johnson also previously stated that he was concerned that the classified documents in Joe Biden's house were potentially planted.
My response to it all is that alleged classified documents showing up allegedly in the possession of Joseph Biden, I mean, there's so much that needs to be investigated, and that's what I call for, is for everything to be investigated. But I'm suspicious of the timing of it. I'm also aware of the fact that things can be planted on people. Places and things can be planted. Things can be planted in places and then discovered conveniently. That may be what has occurred here. I'm not ruling that out.
So as you can see, they did not exactly pick a great option when it comes to selecting a congressman to criticize someone's mental capabilities, but I'm sure this is a narrative that they're going to try throughout the year as we get closer to November. And here's the full interaction between Massie and Johnson.
He appeared to confuse the Chinese city of Beijing with the self-governing island of Taiwan. He confused Jimmy Connors, a famous tennis player, with Jimmy Carter, the 39th president of the United States.
Would the gentleman yield?
No, I won't. This rant is not a singular event. Last January at a rally in Iowa, Mr. Trump incoherently stated, quote, "Think of it, magnets," end quote. And now all I know about magnets is this: give me a glass of water, let me drop it on the magnets, and that's the end of the magnets, end quote. During a series of March campaign rallies, Trump mistook the country of Argentina for a person, telling the crowd, quote, "You know Argentina, great guy. He's a big Trump guy. He loves Trump. I love him because he loves Trump. Anybody that loves me, I like them," end quote. He also claimed that a poll was a legislative bill, and he called our country the United Stage, and he made a series of unintelligible noises when describing himself. Ding, boom, this is me, bing. It's not even clear if Trump knows which of his political opponents he's running against. Mr. Trump has mixed up President Joe Biden and former President Barack Obama on at least 8 different occasions. He bizarrely mixed up presidential candidate Nikki Haley with former Speaker Pelosi, inferring that Ambassador Haley was responsible for Capitol security. He can't keep straight the names of world leaders. In October of 2023, Mr. Trump referred to Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban as the, quote, great leader of Turkey, end quote. Republicans are intellectually and morally dishonest to criticize President Biden when their dear chosen leader, Donald Trump, presents with symptoms which are quite frankly scary. The American people can see through this Republican charade. This is just an ugly exercise to hurt President Joe Biden. Let's move on. And with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
I just wonder if the gentleman from the other side of the aisle is concerned that the additional aid that was voted on to go to Taiwan would cause that island to tip over in any point in the future.
You know what? I hope that the island of Guam is floating on water and not on diesel fuel. That's the point I was making.
Well, this is,
and I think that the gentleman might question my mental acuity, but let's look at your dear leader. Let's look at your
reclaiming my time.
Former President Trump. Let's look at
Time belongs to the gentleman from Kentucky.
Reclaiming my time. I have the utmost respect for my colleague on the other side of the aisle. The point I wanted to make is that sometimes we make statements tongue-in-cheek, that we are metaphorically speaking, and that the president most certainly in most of those cases was doing that, as we all have, Republican and Democrat, made statements that if you're taken out of context seem indefensible or ungrounded, if you will. Let me give an example. So the comment on the magnets here, if you give me a glass of water, let me drop it on the magnets at the end of the magnets. I've actually heard the former president, talk about that, and what he's talking about are electromagnets. So there was a discussion about whether the catapults on aircraft carriers should be steam-driven or electromagnetically driven. And it is true that steam is more reliable, that water would not affect the the hoses, for instance, but salt water could affect wires that are driving electromagnets. So I think it's disingenuous here to offer this and take many things out of context, to take things that were said tongue-in-cheek, to take things that were said on the campaign trail, and act as if they were meant to be taken literally, because we all, on both sides of the aisle, have said things before that were not meant to be taken literally. And with that, I yield back.
The gentleman yield?
I'll yield, Chairman.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. I think the point is well made. No human being's ever said everything exactly right. We've all made mistakes, whatever. But the fundamental question in front of us is, was the decision not to prosecute consistent with the Department of Justice's commitment to impartial justice? That's the fundamental question. President Trump is getting prosecuted for a classified documents concern. Joe Biden isn't. Biden isn't because, this is what the special counsel said. He said, Mr. Biden's memory appeared to have significant limitations, both at the time he spoke to his monitor in 2017 and as evidenced by their recorded conversations, and today as evidenced by the recorded interview with our office. That's why we want the audio tape. President Trump is the department being impartial. President Trump is getting prosecuted. We know what's going on in Miami. President Biden isn't, and he isn't because of that statement from the special counsel. That statement from the special counsel in light of the facts of the case. The elements of the crime have been met. Mr. Hur sat right at that table and told us Joe Biden knowingly kept classified information and knowingly disclosed classified information. Special counsel told us in his report why Joe Biden did it. He said he had strong motivations to release classified information because he was writing a book for which he got paid $8 million. So we have motive, we have the elements of the crime, but he doesn't get charged, and yet President Trump does. And so this committee, the committee that oversees the Justice Department, has oversight of the Justice Department, wants to know if they are impartially administering justice. And the best way for us to figure all that out is to get all the evidence that the special counsel had at his disposal so we can figure that out and see if there's something we need to do legislatively to change the special counsel statute. But it's all part of our oversight. That's the fundamental question. We can get into things people say. I've said things that, taken out of context, Mr. Massie has, Mr. Johnson has, we've all said it. So that's not the point. The point is that fundamental question. Was it the administration of impartial justice? Were they being consistent? That's what we want to know. I yield back.
Imagine, Mr. Speaker, a world without balloons. How can we make sure that the injustice of there being no helium for comedians to get that high-pitched voice that we all hold near and dear to our hearts? Imagine a world without balloons.